Hi friends and readers, I am back this week with another reading vlog, and I've done one of these before where I am jumping back into series that I left hanging. For this week, I'll be reading two books, both of which are books in a part of an interconnected series that I've started. For book number 1 that I'll be reading this week, it is actually book number 3 in a 3-part interconnected series. For book number 2 this week, it is also book number 3 in an interconnected series, and that means I'm finishing book 3 out of 3 for both books that I'm finishing this week, or reading this week, or jumping back into this week, which will also kind of make this reading vlog a little bit hard for you as a viewer. Because they're interconnected books, it really means that with book number 1 you can read it as a standalone, but books number 2 and 3, it's ideal that you read all of these in order because you are going to be pulling on things that happened in book 1, book 2, and book 3. By the time you get to book 3, it's going to be really hard for me to not give a spoiler of what's happening in the story, or to give a summary of the story without spoiling something that probably happened in books 1 and 2. So for that reason, I just want to go ahead and give a forewarning. I'm going to try my best not to give spoilers for any or that you can find out in the other books. It may be hard, I may slip up, and so if you're really anticipating these books in these series, be warned. It is currently Sunday and I work in person Monday and Tuesday, and then I work from home Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. I do a large part of my reading before work, on my lunch break, and after work, and that can be hard on the days that I go in person because I've got quite a long drive time, and both of the books that I'm reading this week are not on Libby for an audiobook available now. They're not as part of Spotify Premium's hours, and I could not find them on Hoopla. I also don't have my Audible credit, which means I don't think I can listen to any of these on my long drive to work on Monday and Tuesday, so we'll see how much reading I can get done on my lunch break and after work Monday and Tuesday. It might be Wednesday before I have any good updates for you, but we'll see. Maybe I'll surprise myself with reading after work tomorrow and Tuesday. I'm so excited to actually finish up these two series. I feel like they've been lingering for the last few months, and I think the first book I started back in September, so it hasn't been lingering as long, but the other book I think I started back, the book series, I think I started back in June. I'll officially tell you that later. I'm gonna go watch some football, rooting on the Panthers. I hope they beat the Falcons because I'll be sad if they don't. Anyways, talk to you next time, and I will be introducing our first book of the week. See you then. Hello. It has in fact been a few days since I introduced this week's video. It is now Wednesday morning. It's about 7:45 a.m. so I'm gonna clock in for work here in the next 10 or so minutes, and I want to introduce the book that I have picked up this week as a part of jumping back into series, and that is As Good as Dead by Holly Jackson. This is book number 3 out of 3, so I'm finishing A Good Girl's Guide to Murder series by reading this book. I was gifted the book set back in September of last year, and then I read A Good Girl's Guide to Murder and the second book in the series in September this year, and now we'll be finishing it up in hopefully November, which definitely November. This is a young adult mystery thriller. Now, young adult is usually not my personal favorite, so in the series so far I have not rated above a 3.5 stars, but I know that that's just because young adult is harder for me to read. There are people who absolutely love this book and rated it 5 stars for this series. Let me know if there's another Holly Jackson book out there, maybe that's not young adult, that you think I could enjoy. I did a video back in September trying to read the whole series and didn't end up finishing the 3rd book or starting the 3rd book, and someone commented on that, a good book to read by Holly Jackson, but let me know what you think. I don't want to spoil too much about the series. Book 1 follows Pip, and Pip is in high school, and as a part of a project that she needed to do, she wanted to try to go back and look at a crime that that happened in her small town where one of the popular girls in the high school was killed, and she was killed by her boyfriend, and then her boyfriend later on went to himself, and she wanted to go back to this case, interview people, look into it as a part of her project, and she just uncovered so much, and it turned out to be something that she could have never expected. And then book 2, it picks up where she's kind of getting the vibe of looking at crimes and uncovering secrets. So she tries to solve sort of a different mystery in book 2 with a little bit of overlap of book 1, but kind of feels like a different vibe. I read book 1 in about a day, so it's really easy to fly through these books. I also wasn't able to figure out the mystery on my own, which I hardly ever do. So if you like to read these for the mysteries and the crimes and figuring out the puzzle pieces, then you might really enjoy this series. I think the only reason I wasn't able to rate books 1 and 2 in this series of Good Girls Guide to Murder above a 3.5 star is like I was saying about young adult. They're high school students getting involved in some nasty crime, honestly. And for me, I couldn't get behind the fact that the high schoolers could be solving the crime. Maybe if they were out of high school, but half the time I was like, you should just be calling the police. You should just calling the police. Anyways, that's just my own problem, but part of the reason why I was like, ugh. Now we are in book 3, which is As Good as Dead, and I am page 148 into the book, which is chapter 18. So I've read about this much and have this much to go. We are definitely getting a new mystery that Pip wants to solve in book 3, but unlike books 2, I do think that book 3 has so much more overlap to what has already happened in the series than the first 2 did, meaning that we are pulling on book 2 a lot. A lot of what was left unsaid in book 2 is popping up now, and I almost feel like I wish I would have read it back to back to back in September because some of these characters are a little bit blurry for me, and this book is feeling much more dark than books 1 and 2. Pip has gone through so much, and you can see it's just piling up on her with sadness and fear. Girl is supposed to be going to college in a few months, and she is just focusing on yet another thing to solve. And then I went back and looked to see if the series was completely finished. If you don't know, Netflix has done a TV series for A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, but upon my research, I think just season 1 is out, which just follows book 1, and I do think they were renewed for season 2. I am debating on, after I finish book 3, whether or not I would want to watch the series. Let me know if you've watched the series and it's worth watching. That's pretty much all the updates for this book. I still have a good ways to go, but I think that I'm going to try to knock it out today if I can. And if not all of it, at least get another third of the way through it. But I'm working from home Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, which is today, tomorrow, and Friday. So I should be able to get a good bit more reading done before work, on my lunch break, and after work this rest of the week. Talk to you then. Okay, I am here to give the quickest update ever in that I have just surpassed part 1, which means I'm a few chapters in to part 2 of As Good as Dead by Holly Jackson. Chapter 31, and something massive has happened that honestly, I guess there was a plot twist, there's a person involved that we're all trying to figure out who the person is, and the author leads you one way, but of course, it's a mystery story, and I guessed who the person was, which is so surprising to me. I'm really on to her in this 3rd book of the series. It's something happening right now that you would imagine would happen at the very end of the book, and so there's gotta be another twist or a few more twists involved because I still have this much left to go. I've only finished this much, and what I thought would probably be the ending of the story is not the ending of the story, so that I don't have any clue or guesses for what's coming next. There are a few things where I'm thinking, yeah, the author probably has to end something with this person and this person, but it's not going to be the main plot. But now I'm thinking maybe it somehow will all be connected, which would make sense. Do I like it? Yes. Do I love it? No. I fear that I'm sort of getting into a book slump, and the end of this book and also the book that I want to read next, I'm not like highly anticipating, and I'm scared of that. We're going to keep pushing, at least for now, to see if we can finish As Good as Dead. I really want to try to get a lot more read tonight if I can, before Survivor and after Survivor. Ideally, I would like to be starting book number 2 by the time I get off work tomorrow, which is Thursday afternoon. Right now it's Wednesday evening now. I'll keep you updated later. Hello. It is now Thursday. I've just gone on my lunch break. It's 12:04 and I have finished As Good as Dead by Holly Jackson and I'm gonna rate it a 3-star. I read all night basically before Survivor, a little bit after Survivor last night, and then even read a good bit of it this morning to finish it out. And the reason I'm rating it a 3-star is just because I felt like I was getting so close to a book slump with this book. Honestly, I don't think it had anything to do with the book's writing or the plot of the story or anything like that, and more to do just with myself. I kind of knew that I wasn't in the mood for this type of book and I still picked it up anyways. I also know from the first 2 books that YA mystery thriller, not really my vibe either, YA in general, so I don't want to hold it against the book. I felt like with this story, we're sort of wrapping things up with Pip and the life of Pip and her solving crimes and having a murder mystery podcast kind of, and there was a lot to wrap up that we didn't get a solid bow tied around from books 1 and 2 in book 3, while also trying to bring in new elements, new thrilling aspects of the story, and a lot of it felt hard for me to believe, which is part of the reason why I didn't rate it a 4 or 5-star. However, overall, I rated the first book 3.5, second book 3.5, and this one a 3-star, so I'll probably say that this series was a 3.5 for me, which is honestly still really good. I didn't DNF any of the books, and I do know that the series is beloved by tons. It was beloved enough to be a TV show and still coming with TV episodes. If you like YA, you like mystery thrillers, then definitely pick up this book or the series. And we are officially picking up book number 2 of this video, but book number 3 in another series of 3, and I will update you after I get off work today on what that book is and how we're feeling about that series coming into the final book. Hello, good morning. It kind of looks so dark right now, like it's nighttime and I've just got the cozy warm lights on, but it's actually 7:44 in the morning and I'm getting ready to go to work here shortly. But I got to read some of the second book this week and I wanted to update you. The dishwasher is running in the background, so apologies there. We made it to page 100, which is 33% of the way through The Queen of Nothing by Holly Black. Is it Holly Black? Now I'm confused because the author for the other one was Holly Jackson, and have I switched their name? Okay, yes. The Queen of Nothing, which is by Holly Black. The first book was Holly Jackson. The Queen of Nothing is book number 3 in the Folk of the Air series, and you've probably heard of it. The Cruel Prince is the first book in the series, and for me at least on my algorithm, the Cruel Prince series is everywhere. Everyone has always recommended it, and I tried to give it a go. It is a young adult fantasy series, and if you made it this far, you know my opinions about young adult, but I do in particular do better with fantasy side of young adult than the mystery thriller or romance side of young adult. So I am reading this on my Kindle. I, for the whole series, have gotten it on Libby, the e-version of the library. The holds for this series have not been far out. Usually if I put a hold on these books, I get them within 2 weeks of putting that hold on. And so it was easy for me to get the 3rd book in the series this week. So The Cruel Prince first book, which is The Cruel Prince, follows Jude. Jude has a twin sister, and Jude and her twin sister are mortals. They are normal old humans. However, they have a third sister, or the third sister, who is older than them, is fairy or fairy, however you want to say it. When they were really young, they were captured by who is now their dad and brought to the fairy world. And so they have always tried to live, the two of them, as humans in the fairy world when all of the fae hate humans. The one advantage out of barely any that mortals have over the fae is that they're able to lie, unless of course there's a spell on them. But they can lie and the fae cannot. So that is one thing that's helping Jude throughout all of this. This series, especially the first book, is very whimsical, very fantasy. There's a lot of court politics as well. And I said earlier that the fae hate humans, especially one particular fae, and that is Prince Cardan, who is the son of the High King in the Cruel Prince series. That's about about as much as I want to give up on the Cruel Prince series, I think that you should read the Folk of Air series, my bad, or the Cruel Prince on your own to figure out what happens with Jude and how she can win a little bit of power as a human in the A world. I read the first book back in June, so it has been a few months. Then you move into book number 2 of the series, which is The Wick King. I read this back in August, so also still a few months. And book 2 definitely sets up book 3, especially at the end of book 2. And I'm excited. I'm only 100 pages into our third book, and I'm excited to see how many of the pieces I can remember from books 1 and 2 that are going to be important for book 3. That is one thing I'll say so far, is I can tell how excited I am about a series and how much I like a series by when I read them back to back. And before reading the Cruel Prince series, most of the times I would read a fantasy series right back to back. I'd never put this much space in between them. Despite this, I gave both books a 4-star. And part of me wonders, did I give it a 4-star because I really enjoyed it since I didn't feel excited to read them back to back? Or did I give it a 4-star because I kind of felt pressure of everyone on planet Earth who loves the series? Maybe I really liked it. And what I'll say this week is I have felt intrigued to finish the third book so I can be done with the series, and less intrigued to finish the third book because I want to know what happens, if you know what I mean. But nonetheless, we are powering through book number 3, The Queen of Nothing. Honestly, after the first book this week, I am so thoroughly happy that I got through 100 pages so far. It is Friday. I have to work here in the next 10 minutes, so we'll see how much we can get done reading for the rest of today. I really want to tackle some of this book. We got some early Thanksgiving plans this weekend, and I've got to make some banana pudding for the first time. It says at my current reading pace on Kindle, I have 2 hours and 57 minutes left in the book. So I'll update you later on to see how we're feeling about The Queen of Nothing. Okay, so we have made it into, I believe it's chapter 19 of the book, just over 50% of the way through The Queen of Nothing, book number 3 in the Folk of the Air series. And I'm here to give you the quickest of updates. I was listening to the book on Spotify Premium. It is on Premium, and I just had my hours renew a few days ago during my lunch break while I cleaned up the house a little bit, and I've made a good headway. I think now I have about 2-ish hours left to read in the story based off my Kindle reading time. And we've made it into what Holly Black is calling book 2, which is essentially just part 2 of the story. We have book 1 and book 2, and I think that's it. I don't think there's a book 3. So it's a good indicator that you're 50% of the way through the book. And I do like the direction we're headed. I have no clue how this is going to end or how it will wrap up. It really doesn't necessarily feel like there's a good indication of what's going on. If I'm being fair with myself, I do like the tension that's happening with Jude and you know who. Quick little sip break. And also there's one other reason why I just know I wasn't quite paying attention before in books 1 and 2, because they have a tail. The main male character has a tail. Maybe I did know that and just completely forgot, but he brings it up in this book, and he kind of makes like a funny joke about his tail, and I'm thinking, huh? And then a few sentences later describes his pointy ears, and I'm thinking, well, duh, this book is about fairy or fae, and of course they don't look like normal human beings. But do you do that where in these whimsical fantasy books, do you imagine them to be normal humans? Are you good at picturing how the author describes them from the first book or 2, and maybe a little bit of context clues in book number 3? I have just been picturing a regular old boy and a regular old girl, because of course she is mortal, but that kind of shocked me when I was listening. I was like, huh? Anyways, I'll update you when I finish this book, maybe within the next day. Hello. I've just spent the morning. It is Saturday morning. I had a lovely little morning. I got my coffee, went outside on the patio with my cat. The weather was perfect, and we just sat out there and enjoyed the last hour of reading for me for The Queen of Nothing. She's now read on my Kindle, and I just returned it back to the eLibby library, so whoever is waiting out there can have the book. And I am going to be rating The Queen of Nothing a 3.75 5, which brings the Folk of the Air series to an end for me. Having finished book 3, I feel like a lot of people, when they get into a series that's interconnected like this one, where book 1, book 2, and book 3 builds on one another, they're usually going to rate, at least from what I can tell and from my experience, the third book the highest sometimes, unless it just happens to be a really good first book. The middle in between second book, that's the bridge to book number 3, and then you've spent all this time in this world, and book number 3 is usually a culmination of all the things you've loved across the series. For me, I think I'm just affirming what I said earlier in the video, and that is this series may not have been a 4-star series for me, but certainly a 3.5, 3.75 star series for me. But I will say it for the millionth time, I think that's just my preference against young adult. In particular, I thought I could work with it for fantasy because I really enjoy myself reading fantasy. Maybe not. 3.75 though is still really good for The Queen of Nothing. I do appreciate the ending. I did not see it coming at all. I was like, where is this going to go? How is this going to end? Caught me by surprise, and I kind of liked the twist to it. I enjoyed how the ending worked. Honestly, it brought the rating up for me towards the last hour of the book. I think the only reason why it's not a 4-star, 4.5 star, because I didn't get that feeling of the series came to an end. I'm so glad that I got to see how these characters' stories finished. I think they finished in a okay resolution and a good resolution, just not the bam, you've just spent all this time reading a series feeling and you're sad to see it go. Less sad to see it go and more thankful that I'm finished. But it was good writing, good story building. Anytime I ever say anything about a book, one thing I know is that I could never write a book on my own. I could never do what these authors do, and I love that they are so creative and can dream up a whimsical fantasy world that exists in both fairy and the human world and make those two collide. So props to any author ever. But it was so nice this week to check off 2 books and 2 series, and to finish up 2 series. I really enjoyed getting these off my list, and now we have a few more to finish up later down the road as a part of series I've already started. So you might see another video like this coming. Let me know your thoughts on the Folk of the Air series or Good Girls Guide to Murder series, and that's all. Bye for now.